This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. In a world of fractured stories, timelines buried, and truths erased, one project dares to ask the question: what if everything you thought you knew about history was wrong? This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots. A 5,025-year simulated walkthrough tracing a melanated Adam back to 4000 BC. Over the last decade, new revelations confirm a black origin for humanity, from European vaults to tribal memory, Babylon to Britain. This is not just history, this is a challenge, a simulation, a movement. Meet the man behind GTR, Dr. Wilton MacDonald II, Caymanian, British, Jamaican, haplogroup E and stateless for 26 years. Now a global explorer, 119 countries and counting. A hedge fund lawyer, a UK chartered accountant, a seeker of the lost archives of our people. But the question remains, if all black people came out of Africa, does that make us only African? Or are we also European, Scottish, Native American, Jacobite Hebrew, Asian? GTR exists to answer that question. You've felt it your entire life, that there's something wrong with the world, a splinter in your mind. That splinter has brought you here, to GTR. Whites can't trace their roots before the 1800s. Where's ours? Where are the tribes? The languages, the kings, the queens, the true Hebrews? Where did the giants go? Where are the Neanderthals? Angels, aliens? Why do we speak in so many tongues? Was Babel just a myth? A memory? History has holes. Hollywood has lied. The system was never made for us to remember. Only 5 to 8% of people today are white. And what about the 1800 stories and postcards of the cabbage babies? But nearly all history books center their story. That doesn't add up. Atlantis, lost cities, vanished civilizations, or were they erased? Try GTR. Take the red pill and awaken to the truth of your ancestors. Or take the blue pill and keep dreaming a fantasy. GTR, a simulated walkthrough of Black Hebrew history and eschatology. This is the beginning of remembering.
So welcome. This is GTR, Genesis Timeline Roots, episode 29, week 29. This week, this feature is an interview with Caymanian and historian David Rivers, who is based in Tampa, but he is through and through a Caymanian. I am your host, Dr. Wilton MacDonald. So let's just dive in. And David and I, we have been sharing stories, and we have a passion for history and genealogy. I really wanted to present this because a lot of Caymanians are tracing the roots. Mario Ebanks has been helping me with my search and got from his tree, about 40,000 members. And that's how I got on to David. My own half cousin who is a Rankin, who's living in Cayman, married to Baden, and that remains a second cousin of mine on my mother's side. But by and large, family has been living in Cayman for the past, God knows, almost over 40 years in Cayman. Fascinating, David. Tell me a bit about yourself, your background, please, for the audience. I'd love to hear in just a quick summary of your father, your mother. I understand that your father is a Harkness and your mom a Rivers.
My bio dad, his name was Jim Harkness, but that's all I know about him. So that's all I can tell you about him. But my mother, my biological mother, is a woman I grew up always knowing as my sister, Annette. She is the daughter of Alric Denniston Rivers and Gertrude Greer. Now, Gertrude Greer, her maiden name, has no Caymanian roots other than she married the son of a Cayman Islander. So yes. she doesn't count in that sense at all. But it's my dad was a Seabee during World War II, construction battalion. He went over to the Pacific and from 43 to 45. But anyway, it was the daughter that was born while he was overseas, Annette. She got in trouble when she was 18, 19 with a fellow that knocked her up, basically, and she got him fired, and he left town because she found out things about him that I won't go into. But her parents swore to secrecy, swore the whole family to secrecy. I only found this out when I did my DNA through Ancestry back in 2018, early 2018. The other two sisters said, David is going to find something out, so why don't we tell him? So she gave permission for them to tell me. They both wrote me a letter and told me the deal. Because I was getting from Ancestry all sorts of names that I already knew from the genealogy I already done, especially Cayman Islander names. Yes. A lot of names that Dr. Wilton mentioned, the surnames, and that's why I found out somebody from the family must have put me up for adoption. But then they told me what the deal was, and that's how I know. And I'm loving finding out more cousins. And one day I'll hopefully visit that myself.
I really like that, because growing up as an Adventist and living partly in West Bay, there was a brief time that my family, we lived in West Bay during the very early 1980s. And we moved to Bordentown, Savannah, say after 83. We arrived in Cayman in 1979. But there was a Rivers family who migrated from Cuba. So tell me about it, because you were raised by your grandparents. So that's right. Gertrude. She was a Greer, and your grandfather is Alric Denniston Rivers.
Right. My biological granddad, whom I call Dad, and his dad was the one that came over in 1910 to work on the overseas railroad extension from the mainland to Key West. His name was Gideon Kerbin River.
All right, I got that. And then there was Jackson. So Jackson would be his wife, Bertha.
Bertha Eileen Jackson, yeah.
Great. So I have documented, because again, you've provided this information. I gleaned some of it from Mario Ebanks. He went to Florida and got a lot of genealogical records on Caymanians. And this really, because the Caymanian story is fully not told. We hear people talking about it all the time. Well, my ancestors came to the Brac. A lot of ancestors came from the Brac. But I grew up in Cayman, being an immigrant, coming from Bahamas and Jamaica, and then finding out my roots, because my mom's Indian, my dad's Black. But that Black is very exotic, very complex indeed. It's Scottish, it's African, it's Hebrew. It's a very, very complex mix. But my dad is 20% white, which makes me around 10% white. And those ancestors of mine, from the whites, they came from Panama. I thought they all came from the Pots. They came from England, but turns out by hearing testimony stories of relatives that are alive, Tomlinson, and there's a Tomlinson that's married to a Potts, also from Jamaica, and they've confirmed the roots that two brothers came from Panama, and they're essentially given a whole mountain. They're just given this vast swath of land in Westmoreland, Jamaica. It's called Porter's Mountain, and that's where my maternal grandma, Daphne Potts, was born. And so that's where that side came from. But it looks like the Potts were traced through New York to Ellis Island, and there's a lot of immigrants that came into America, and they said yes from Europe. Again, I'm trying to unpack that because this this painting is forever my background. So, I'm living in Poland. I'm realizing that a lot of my wife's roots are not really Polish, and there are question marks as to identity. So when people say often, oh, he's a captain and he came from Scotland and he came from England, again, we have to at least pause because of the stories coming out. So we all need to closely monitor when it comes to Europe and throwing around the European label. But back to your story, and this fascinating one, I did a little bit of research myself on the Harkness, and you mentioned to me that it could be Scottish. Turns out all the records that I found on my heritage, they point to an Irish root connection from Ireland, but it's still not confirmed. Your dad, James, could have been born around 1937. Again, I don't know for sure. But then his father could have been Wilfred, or William or Wilfred Harkness. There's a record of a Wilfred. After I spoke to you yesterday, I went to do some research, and there could be a Wilfred Stanley Harkness, and he would have been born roughly about, say, 1910, thereabouts, possibly a haplogroup R. Now, you have some results that you gleaned on family tree DNA as to your haplogroups. I saw another Jim Harkness. What haplogroup was that? Can we go over that, on your tablet? Because you found the Jim Harkness haplogroup RL.
Yes, Romeo Lima 151 is the group.
Okay. So you have a Romeo Lima 151, a Jim Harkness, and then there was also a Harvick, an RZ.
Okay, that I've got to scroll down for a little bit.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
We could run through the list of the surnames from the top. Longest DNA match for yourself on the Family Tree DNA, FTDNA website, which is specializing in the haplogroup type. They do make a note. So you can just run through the list. Started with the top. The thing was Jim Harkness was the biggest match with an RL. You said 151 RL match.
Well, now here is Gary Jackson, which I think is my cousin in Washington State. He's RL 1403.
Okay, and that's you said Jackson.
Yes, Gary Jackson. If this is the one I'm thinking of, he lives in Washington State, up in the Northwest. Now here's Carl Preston Ebanks. That's Romeo Foxtrot Tango 108. Here's Kurt Marston Goring. That's an island name. It's Echo Zulu 15933. Mr. Lee Grant Cook is Romeo Lima 151. That's pretty common. Now, Neely Panton, Panton, he lives in British Columbia. His wife is a moderator of the group we're in. It's India Polo 109. IP 109 is his haplogroup. Charles Alfred Suttles II, he is Romeo Yo-Yo Pogo 670, RYP 670.
And you know what? I am also finding out that we have a connection. It's obviously to Canada. There is a Canadian connection. In my own family, I noticed that there was a crossover with Cape Breton in Canada. So there's definitely that Canadian root connection. Just while we were on the phone here, just exploring the Canadian side, and this is confirming because you're seeing the actual DNA matches, and on the record side, it's taking me from the U.S. into Canada.
Well, here's David Overton. He's Juliet Yo-Yo 1307. So that's different.
I find that the haplogroup I's and J's, they're sort of a mixed bag. And I hate to label anyone as a mixed bag, but that's what I'm finding with the I's and the J's. There's some prominent McDonald's clan chiefs in Canada, and they're the group I's, I for India. And then, they're not R's. The two polar ends appear to be R versus E. And that's what I've been finding out in my research. And that's actually the center, piece of my thesis, looking at the default haplogroup of Europe before the 1800s, R versus E. So I consider I and J to be, intermediary sort of.
I got I got 3 guys in a row here. Do you want theirs?
Yeah, so go ahead and give me those.
Warren Holt Talley, Talley. His haplo is India, Foxtrot, Golf, Charlie 20. And then there's Eugene Latimer, RASO or Racor. He's Juliet Zulu 631. And then there's James A. Samples, Romeo Foxtrot Tango 358. Oh, here's Eric Ebanks. Look at that, Eric Ebanks. Oh, he doesn't give a haplogroup.
No haplo. Jackson was a R.
Scott Cristal, that's Christal, Cristal. He's no NA for haplo. Johnny Williams, he's NA. R Shaw, just initial R Shaw. He's haplo Romeo Delta Foxtrot 13.
This is some important stuff. I mean, just finding out. If you look at the screen here, we have one of the possible cousins, what she looked like, a Bertha Margaret Harkness. If you look back at this James as a potential, not just a grandfather, great-grandfather, one of the daughters shows up as a Bertha Harkness. If you look at this is Bertha Margaret Harkness, and she's connected to Canada. It's one of the lines, because what I've done is I've extended the lines a bit. I picked up some other surnames called Morton and Muir. But the Harkness definitely goes back to, say, William Harkness. And we are roughly around the 1800s. A lot of the R's tend to, this is where it's almost terminating, the mid to early 1800s, and that's on the side of the haplogroup R's. We could pause there on that search, and I could go to the Rivers, because I wanted to look at the Rivers.
Now, I've got Errol Brian Rivers, and he was one of my first matches on Ancestry. His doesn't have a haplogroup. Then I've got Samuel Monroe Rivers Jr. He's haplo Romeo Lima 151, which I think we've seen before. Then we have Dr. Thomas Newton Jordan, PhD, and he's Romeo Lima 2225. And then we have John Doddridge Scott. He must be from Brack. In fact, I think I know his sister Jenny. I think
is there a haplo?
Haplo is Romeo Alpha 934. Now, the name below him is Charles Delano Bush. Now, it's interesting. I know about his genealogy. He's got Rivers in there, but he's got Bush and Yates. And so, in fact, some of his people were originally from the Isle of Pines.
He's what?
From the Isle of Pines.
And what is his haplo?
Echo Zulu 5994.
Okay, so he's a haplogroup E. That is a mixed bag indeed. So generally at large, I just made a note on the Rivers end that we have predominantly R's, but then in the case of Bush, we have an E. That is quite fascinating indeed.
Yeah, I mean, I could go over to Ancestry and bring him up, because I've traced a lot of his tree and give you some of the other names there he's related to.
Speaking to him at some point in the past.
I thought you might have, because he lived in West Bay for a long time.
So let's see. You could look at the screen. Is this who I'm talking about, or a different Charles? Does that look like Charles Bush?
Charles Bush. Yeah, that's it.
If you look at his profile, look at the Wilmot Henry London Fiddler Ebanks. And he is connected to a lot of the Ebanks in Cayman, and he was a black guy.
Right.
But I never knew really. There's a John Dennis Bush going back to 1812, coming from Jamaica and Westmoreland. I had no clue what he was. tracking his roots to Cayman, and apparently now being the progenitor would be a haplogroup E.
He says that was his oldest Bush paternal trace.
Yeah, it was back to 1812 in Jamaica.
Yeah.
But this guy, Wilmot Henry, is a pretty popular guy. When I've done all the trees and looked at trees, his face comes up a lot. That is really interesting to see, and knowing that from your results, it's like a triangulated match, that you're able to get these results of Rivers, because you have Rivers DNA. Yes, your mom's maternal side, your dad is Harkness, and Harkness ties into Canada. It's no, I've seen the records. It goes back to Canada, but then from Canada, there's a sort of Irish connection, but the trail is cold. We can't really go much deeper. But going back to your own, let's go back to it. You mentioned to me that you're connected to Mario E. Banks and to Clinton E. Banks.
Yes.
Yeah, so Mario E. Banks and Clinton E. Banks. So where would those guys be connected to you on this tree?
I'd have to go over to Ancestry and see what I had Clinton calculated to. I don't know that I've figured out what Mario is to me, because there's actually two Marios. There's a Mario Eliseo, which I think is the one you've dealt with, whose ancestors were from Alpines. And then there's another one or two of them by a similar name.
I think there's like Mario C. E. Banks and then Mario E. Banks, but there are two. Yeah, there's Mario E and Mario M. Mario E and Mario M. So Mario M is the person who helped me to construct a lot of the Cayman families and trees, and he has roots going into Barbados. That's Edward Alfred Goring, and he derived his name from his mother's side. Again, not the same chap that we saw with Bush, with Charles Bush. This fellow Wilmot shows up again. So this guy shows up, Henry. He called him Fiddler. Fiddler. He was a busy guy.
Name, yeah. But he even played the fiddle.
But he shows up on a lot of trees at Cayman, a lot. So Wilmot Henry Fiddler, he's called Henry London Fiddler Ebanks. And so that's Mario's maternal great grandpa. And then on the father's side, we have Goring. Now let me look at Clinton and just check out what Clinton's roots would be.
Yeah, his middle name is Everett. Clinton Everett Ebanks.
So Clinton Everett. Let's see. We're going here and seeing Bodden. We have a Bush. We have we have Ebanks. I'm just unpacking. There's a lot of Ebankses in going to Jamaica. And the other fellow who pops up a lot, just in case you want to know, is this guy called John Shearer Jackson. He is forever. He is between Henry Fiddler, Ebanks, and John Shearer Jackson. These guys are like the dynamic duo. They are forever plastered over a lot of these family trees.
West Bay, especially.
Yeah, I've just seen these two persons traced back. So, and funny enough, Watler, there's Oliver Watler, who is really a Connolly, a lawyer who is living in Cayman, and he's actually a Connolly, and he's a haplogroup E, like I am. But the Connollys and the Watlers are, quite a few of them are R's, are haplogroup R's, but his Connollys appear to be pretty much black men who married white ladies.
Well, there's an Oliver Watler who is does a lot of genealogy. He was in Caymanian Connections, and he's also
speaking about. He was a lawyer at Maples, and he has his own practice, and he was doing a lot of genealogical work. So I know he's a haplogroup E. Although he has a Watler surname, he's really a Connolly. So with Clinton, it's a hard task to find the other Henry connection. And his is Everett, right? It's the same guy. Now, he confirmed to me that he's an R, just like you are. So that means his paternal side, it's all Bodden. Even though he's an Ebanks, he's that is really paternal maternal. Ebanks with the Mandersons, the people drop the names, like you have Farrington. Farrington is really Ebanks, and then Manderson.
Yeah, they took the middle name and made it the last name. Yeah.
Yeah, so to distinguish themselves,
Yeah.
from their others. But
Okay.
notice that. But it must be hidden in here somewhere. One of these cousins would link back, because he's an Ebanks, trying to go back to Henry. Do you have any records with the surname with Ebanks? I'm just combing through, looking at the rivers. We had, branching off the rivers, we had Jackson. We had looks like it's a Thompson.
Yes.
You have a Thompson, and looking like we have, oh, right, this is where it is. It's off of John Dighton Rivers was married to a Rachel
Helen Ebanks.
Yeah, Rachel. So this is where this Henry's line comes from. Yes, the Henry.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
So this is where that Ebanks picks up from. Right on your paternal side, we have Thompson and Bodden, but Rachel was the Parsons, so you have Parsons as well.
Right.
You have Jackson, and again, this guy here, John Shearer Jackson.
Yep.
Well, he's a rock star. He's forever coming up on profiles. John Shearer Jackson, he's there. And then you have the Edens, and then the Wattlers, and Bodden again. William, Joseph, Doddy. And I mean, a lot of people will just go through this and search for themselves. Again, we have the Wattler, a hill. That's an interesting hill. It could be Jamaican. Let's see. We have a Lily Fort as a surname. We have Greer.
That's all from the southeast U.S.
So we're just stepped down into your mother's line.
Right.
You have is it Etheridge, and
Right.
James Etheridge in Alabama. And you
Right.
have a Matty Daniels. Daniels' surname, you would drop the Mech because you had McDaniels. And so some of them just call themselves Daniels. There's a name change. This is fascinating stuff. People don't realize that commercial photography was available from like the mid 1850s. And I always kind of smile when I see people with their photographs and they're blasting it out there and say, well, here's a photo back in the early 1800s. I'm like, how do you swing that?
Yeah, really.
But sometimes they have painting, and I had to do some paintings, and I just wanted you to show. I mean, it's less work on your dad's side, but today able to find a Thompson, a Morton, a Muir, and then the Canadian connection. And you showed that, David, because you have those DNA matches. And I tell people, there's some people, like we have some genealogists, like I know a guy called, called Paul Crooks. He only handles records, only records. He's only into records, and say you have to look at the DNA. And then some people do the DNA only, and they don't even bother with records. But you have to at least use both. For me, I go a step further. I am testing my samples. I tested myself in private labs because the DNA companies, they have their algorithms. I mean, I'm not saying I'm not trusting. I've seen that they've changed. I have moved my results from the commercial lab to the private lab. And the minute I did that, I saw a 20, 30x, 40 times, multiple 40 of matches that just sprung out of the algorithm. And it would help me connect, because then I had these, question marks. I said, but this guy even resembles my dad. He's from Jamaica. He's a McDonald. He has a similar story, no history of slavery. And again, some people claim it. I don't mean, some people have the history of slavery, and that's really sad. And it produces a lot of even white guilt. And I said to people, if you don't have a slave story, then share it. Because all you're doing is you're putting more guilt on the heads unnecessarily of whites and saying, well, blaming because you were the master. My story here is that blacks will be the ones responsible for for changing history, for erasing and erasure. They're the ones. We are the ones. And stop blaming, again, this whole blame game and blame culture. That's why I'm putting the message across. It's one of the benefits of embracing a new take on history. It's not to put anyone down. It's really to elevate and help clarify some things about our history that's just missing.
Exactly.
And we like to be entertained. Look at Pirates of the Caribbean, not knowing that all those stories tied to one book. I did a GTR story, an episode on the pirates, and there was a film called The Bluff that came out, just recently by Caymanian, Frankie Powers. So you have The Bluff, and all of these stories of piracy is traced back to one book. It's a history of pirates, not Pirates, but Pyrates.
Right.
Deliberately misspelled, but it was one book whose author was some guy in the UK under a pseudonym. And it was not, written by this captain. It was written by some English author. And it's one book, all the stories of the pirates.
Yep.
So this is your story. And if you look at my story as presented, my mother's line, and wherever possible where I could not come up with a portrait, I then created and paid an artist to come up with a composite. So my maternal great grandfather, David Ajaramlal, is really from and came from India and migrated to Jamaica. And that's a real picture of his wife, Francella. These were all Indian people, mix of Ramlal and Sibran.
They're all in my tree. I traced your tree back as far as I could.
Yeah, and this is where the Potts line became, it was revised. And it came under some scrutiny because of the stories of the Tomlinson, who was married to George Potts, had many kids, many children, and one of his daughters was married to an Alvin Tomlinson. And the Tomlinson line, we have a few Tomlinsons. Our family doctor is Dr. Steve Tomlinson, but in this case, the Tomlinsons, at least those who didn't come from St. Elizabeth, from Westmoreland, from Darlaston, were black, and they told me the story. His son, Alvin's son, Kenneth, is getting up in age, but told me the story of the migration of the Potts and how they came from Panama. But those kind of stories, and I always knew this paternal grandpa as George or Georgie Potts, but he was actually George William. And him and his brother Edgar, they came to Jamaica from Panama. It's important to note all these stories. So tell me this story in case going back to yours. I'm fascinated because remember I said I came to Cayman and I found a lot of rivers, a few rivers from Cuba. Let's just hear the life stories. I'm curious to know about the Central America, as a Honduras connection for your rivers.
The main rivers that I know about that went over to Roatan, the Bay Islands are Roatan, Utila, and Guanaja.
I made it easy, so I put your tree back up, and you can just tell me by looking at the names. Are we talking about Gideon or Alaric?
Well, Gideon came from West Bay to Key West in 1910, and he was a progenitor of my family down in Dade County. Of course, I'm in near Tampa now, but Dade County was where I was raised, so that was that branch. But he had one of his uncles, his uncle Thomas Baxter, married into some of the families in the Bay Islands, Roatan.
It was Gideon's uncle?
Yes, Gideon's uncle, Thomas Baxter.
But what was his mother's? Well, it would be, he was also a Rivers. He was also a Rivers.
Yeah, Thomas Baxter Rivers, or Baxter Thomas Rivers. Yeah, he He married Nora Hermina Jackson, and they had 2 children in the Bay Islands, in Roatan, the Bay Islands. But then he died in 1910, and she remarried to a Greenwood, Elam Greenwood. But then she died in 1924, and Granny and Granddaddy Rivers, Gideon and Bertha, took their children in to raise in the house next door to me. I mean, I wasn't there yet, but in 1920s, and raised them during the Great Depression and put them through high school during the Great Depression. But they were actually born in Roatan. I think probably French Harbor area, probably Oak Ridge.
Who was the wife of Thomas Baxter Rivers?
So Nora Hermina Jackson. She is Granny Rivers' sister.
And do you know Thomas Baxter's father?
That would have been Aaron Nicodemus Rivers. Yeah, he had about 8 children. But then so did the Jackson side. John Henry Jackson had about 8 children too. So big families.
This one was not included because under Aaron, I'm just looking at Aaron's children. I have here that Aaron had the following children: John Dexter, he had
Right.
Jane Elizabeth, he had
Yep.
Eldridge Aaron, David Hamilton,
Right.
and then would be your grandfather, your Gideon Kerbin.
Right.
But yeah, thank you for that. That's why we are here. So it'll be 1870. Looks like 1870s when he was born.
Thereabout.
And he was born, would that be in which part? In Cayman or Honduras? That'd be,
Grand Cayman, West Bay, likely West Bay, because Aaron Nicodemus was born in 1845 in West Bay, and so was his wife Mary Ellen Thompson, and they had a bunch of children in West Bay. But Thomas Baxter moved to Roatan in the Bay Islands.
I see here he had a partner, which was Nora Hermina Jackson, but his
Right.
wife is stated given as Mary Charlotte Bauden.
Yeah, and I think she may have died. I think he maybe was with her first and she died, but then he married Nora Hermina. But he
Got
died himself in 1910, and then she married Elam Greenwood. But then she herself passed in 1924, 26, and Granny Rivers took their children, Nora and Lubin.
Fascinating Jacksons and Bauden lines. Do you happen to know Nora Jackson's father? I mean, I can just do a search right here, but you know.
John Henry Jackson. Yeah, he and Jane Jacinta had Nora, Bertha, Jocelyn, bunch of boys, Henry Norman, William Irwin. And it's funny, William Irwin went to Mobile, Alabama, and Granny Rivers was actually visiting him when Gideon sent her a cable, said, I can't come back down to West Bay to marry you because I got promoted to bridge tender, so please come to Key West. She came to Key West and they married in November of 1912. And within the next year, he bought the land on the mainland that the family was raised on, although their first 2 children were daughters and were born on the Keys.
Well, this is what editing in real time is about, because
Yeah.
I had John Henry Jackson's information in here. You see, when we passed all this knowledge, not everything, because look, I combed through the whole books. I did not even see this, and I know they had a lot of children back in the day. They had tons of children,
Yeah.
and I would not even see. They didn't even come up. I didn't see Thomas Baxter at all. He didn't come up at all as Aaron's child. And then you told me, and then poof, I'm able to connect Nora. And then I had Nora's father in here, John Henry Jackson, connected again to the same celebrity, John Shearer Jackson, which is 1777.
Right.
Where was that chap born? 1777 in St. Mary, Jamaica. And you can see by his profile, that he was obviously some man of sort of mixed race heritage, but had a beard, and that's obviously some kind of portrait because, come on, there's no cameras. He died in 1829. They didn't even have fully functioning cameras in 1829. But at least I connected Nora with her parents. Now on to Mary Charlotte Bodden. Do you know much about her as to who the parents would have been?
No, I don't.
It looks like there's some kind of connection with a William Bodden, but that's a pretty, generic William Bodden. She apparently is connected to a William Bodden, who was born in 1853.
Mary Charlotte Bodden, let's see. Yeah, she died in 1899, and Thomas Herbert Rivers was born then. In fact, she may have died in that childbirth. Let me see who it says her parents were. Actually, your Cayman Islands families has a dad for her, William Bodden.
Yeah, I tried. There's so many. Trying to find the right one, which was 18. Looks like it's 1830, 1830s, and that would have been her. William 18. This is it. William Wade. I got it. William Wade Bodden. So I got her connection. She's connected with a William Wade Bodden, 1835, and I got her father.
That's the only hint that Ancestry gives you back to your tree that I have. So I'll put him in there.
William Bodden. So he is connected to her. That solves that puzzle. This guy was a complete ghost. Didn't have any sense of him at all.
This is GTR, Genesis Timeline and Roots.
This is a fun exercise. I look, this stuff keeps me up. Can't get enough of it, but this family searching, and when you find these nuggets of truth, when you find these nuggets, like for me, the Potts line was a revelation. And I found also another cousin of mine, a McDonald, whose name is Joseph. He lives in Cayman, and then apparently that name is Joseph straight out. That's a line that I found just 2 months ago. And here's a guy who was always working with us, working with my dad. He runs a tinting company in Cayman. And I've known of him and didn't even think twice about it. I just wanted to share that there's a whole lineage of Josephs. I wanted to show you what I was talking about. The other thing I found out, here's a Joseph Mark, a McDonald. And then his father, I found he's living in New Jersey, which is a Carol Joseph Carey McDonald. And then it goes all the way. You have an Alva Joseph McDonald. You have Zacchaeus, all Hebrew names, Zacchaeus Joseph. Then there's Norman Joseph. There's another Norman Wells. And it takes us to a common grandfather, which is James. But there are a lot of biblical names, and there was something connected to the Hebrew, these biblical Hebrew names. On my side, I have, William, but Daniel. There's Daniel. There's James. There is a Joseph as well on my side. Other cousins would be Hezron, very Hebrew sounding name.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
This is just some of those bits of truth, and I call them gold nuggets that turn up anytime you find something new. Now, what is your latest discovery as to family? Was it the Harkness and finding out back the Harkness Canadian connection for you?
Well, you told me there was a Canadian connection. I really had no idea about that. But when I started getting those DNA matches back from Ancestry, I made up a form letter and sent it to like a couple hundred matches right off the bat, and none of them related with Harkness gave me any information.
They didn't reply back.
No, or else they said they didn't have any information.
I got that a bit too in my search. I had to be a little tough, grow some tough skin, because some people don't want to respond, and they say, just kind of piss off, or some of them do respond, but
Yeah,
some
well,
just don't.
I made sure that they knew I'm not looking to upend anybody's life. I'm not looking for any money, none of that. I just want to know, just information.
Information. You got it right. You got it right,
And
David. Information.
he keep his privacy or whatever if he's even still alive, which I don't think so at this point. But I think he may have embarrassed a lot of family members along the way. Given that what happened with my sister, so
Yeah,
sister slash bio mom.
that's a sore point. But
Right.
you have a rich, and did you ever come across a photograph of your father of the Jim? Did you ever see a photograph, or there was no photo out there?
No, nothing.
The only photo I have on your dad's side is someone who's connected to this James, who's apparently Canadian, and he had a daughter. And here's that picture of Bertha. That's the only photo that I have, and I just make it, just enlarged. But that's the only paternal photo that you have. And you could visit MyHeritage. You could go back to MyHeritage, and you can see it. But Margaret Harkness. Let me see if she was married to someone. See what her name is. Oh, I love these search terms, and let me see if anything pops up.
Yeah, it seems like FTDNA does a lot of partnership with MyHeritage.
Yeah, they do have a partnership indeed. But that's the only profile that I have at the moment. So what you're looking at of a Bertha Margaret Harkness. But on your maternal side, there's so many portraits that it's amazing.
I love having a picture of somebody to post on their person page on Ancestry. I've been definitely collecting. Whenever I match somebody up face with a name, I'll put the face right on there.
Yeah, with Gertrude.
Makes it so much richer.
Yes, it provides a deep dive. Now on your great, I see here a photo of the Jane Jacinthia.
Jane Jacinthia Co. Yeah.
And she's a co. So that is going back way to the 1850s now. Yeah, that's the oldest photo that I have on your mom's side.
Yeah, she was born in 1860 actually. 1860 and died in 1940.
And there are some co's that I knew living in Bodentown. I went to school with one or two. Yeah, but this is really fascinating. Now, anyone in your family that's also interested in genealogy? Are you the only one that is close? I mean, apart from Clinton and Mario M. Ebanks. Anyone else?
There is a lady that works in a nurse that works in the computer department of our local hospital. She's related to me on both sides. Her mom was from the BRAC, and her dad is related distantly to one of my mom's side. So she's actually related to me both sides, both ways. And she loves genealogy. She's done a lot of research, like 400,000 people in her tree.
Wow. And what size is your tree, by the way? Your personal tree?
Maybe 150,000, something like that.
My biggest tree, I have 450, but it's part of a series of trees. When combined, it's just over 1.1 million. Because trying to hang it all in one frame, it's hard.
Yeah,
hard.
really.
In fact, you have to get the data. You have to make sure that it doesn't crash and it's backed up. Because sometimes you have these issues, but yeah, it really is an awesome thing. I started with 200 people, I would say 6 years ago. 6 years ago, I had like 200 people on my tree for the longest while. And then from there, it just snowballed into what we have. So any other exciting stories that you wanted to share about genealogy and what your family and any interesting things like discoveries in your family, places visited at all on either side, or river's side?
Harkness, I'm pretty much tapped on just from what I know about my bio dad. I can't really tell you much. Although this is interesting, my uncle Uncle Kenneth Greer, he married Shirley Danzy, and her mother, I believe, was Harkness. But not that I know of any relation to the Harkness that was my bio dad.
No, this is a fascinating journey, and I keep learning something new almost, every month you find something new about, and you can add a bit to it, and again, make sure it's backed up. But between my mom's side, my dad's side is the one that's more dynamic and changing. My mother's side, story, they came from India, they were indentured servants, they came to Jamaica, the Cibran and the Ramlals. But on my father's side, POTS has been clarified now via Panama. And then the McDonald's, that really is a line that heads. Yeah, we touched in Africa, but it certainly lands in Scotland, and there are a lot of matches along the way through the Canadian borders. We have Cape Breton and going through Canada and coming across to Scotland, Isle of Skye, and northern Scotland. So I'm happy. I'm pleased with just the work done and helping others along the way. Helping people, of course, the tests, they are quite pricey. At some point, I know you want to confirm, you can do 23andMe. Sometimes they have these promotional, days and discounts. And then, if I'm ordering in batch to just say FYI, I'll send you a kit too, because for a lot of people, what I've done is donated a lot of kits. I've probably done more than 200 kits in my whole research. And some 23andMe, because it's the only autosomal company that projects a haplo. Ancestry doesn't do it. MyHeritage doesn't do it. They do a good job getting matches, but they don't project the haplogroup, which will help you connect in where your lines will fall, where your migration is from Africa. And in the case of myself, I'm able to know that I'm an M on my mom's side, and I'm an E, and then you're definitely looking like you're an R, and then on your mom's side, probably could be, who knows, it could be an L, or it could be a H, which my wife in Poland, she's an H. Now, funny enough, the Tomlinson is on the fair skin Tomlinsons and Cayman. The maternal side appears to be L. So appearances are deceiving. The phenotype deceives. A guy like Vladimir Putin of Russia, people wouldn't see that he's an E as well. Just like Steven Spielberg. When you look at the director, famous one in Hollywood, he's an E, like me. Einstein was an E. There are a lot of men. If you test 10 men, I guarantee you at least 40% would be E's. And it is the oldest, largest haplogroup. But funny enough, when they look at it, the reports this is the deeper dive. When you do the full tests on family tree DNA, they produce these reports. And here it is that this is my own, and it shows that all my connections are in Scotland. Now, what they're telling me is the E haplo is 0.1%. It's not statistically significant. It's not significant at all. When I look at the R's and how the R's connect, the R's do not match with one another as the E's match. I'm finding, and if they look at my ancient reports, look what they're saying about the notable connections. These are the notable connections who are E's. The Bill Pickett. Philip Davis is the Prime Minister of Bahamas. We have Desmond Tutu, Bishop. We have Ramses. Well, we know Ramses in Egypt. Conti, Tom Conti, the actor. Nelson Mandela. We don't have all of them noted, but these are some of the ones. Neanderthal man, I'm not even buying because that's too long. This is BC 368,000. They're off the reservation. For me, my timeline ends at 4,000. Where do the people go? If you had people from 300,000 years, 368,000 years ago plus AD. Remember, this is BC, so you have to add another 1 to 2,000 years. So this is roughly 370,000 years ago.
Wow.
The question is, where did those people go? We created all the population in just the last 1,000, 2,000 years, David.
Right.
Time of Christ, there's like 150, 190 million people.
Yeah.
So there's 190 million people. That means that it took the planet 368,000 years to make 190 million people. In the last 1 to 2,000 years, we did 8 billion. That boggles the mind. So
Right.
this is just some of the things, but this is a deeper dive that you will get when you test on family tree and do the deeper test. You've done a transfer. You can obtain these reports when you go and you do the tests onto the deeper dive tests onto family tree DNA. But I had to go outside to get deeper matches. This is a report that's telling me that see how it ends? My story doesn't end here. It says we encourage others to test. So please ask your friends to sign up and family to sign up. You know, the marketing pitch to get more
Right.
people to pay. But when I went outside this company, I got 40 times matches. So I got 40 times more matches. And right now we have 2 main matches with I mean, I do have some level of matches. It's not like I don't have. On this site, I probably have more than 60 matches. Well, I say, David, I mean, I think that we've covered so much grounds. I mean, I'm happy that you're the first, not the last, but the first Caymanian where we're talking about family history and tracing. I think it's really important for us to do this kind of work. It's a passion of ours. It's your passion. It's my passion. It's others around us. Mario and Benton. So I really am thankful. So thank you for your time. So this is a wrap. This is the end. It concludes GTR episode 29. This is a conversation with genealogist David Rivers. You're in Tampa, so enjoy the weather. Enjoy
Amateur genealogist, amateur.
And an up and coming one, but nonetheless, this is our passion. And thank you for your time.
Indeed.
For everyone, good day, good evening, good night to all. And thank you for watching GTR episode 29, conversation with amateur genealogist David Rivers, coming live from Tampa, Florida, and Dr. McDonald. Still, I'm in Poland. Thank you so much.